a city built on illusions and fueled by the hopes of countless dreamers, where fortunes could be won overnight or lost in the blink of an eye. In the years following World War II, Los Angeles was a sprawling metropolis, brimming with new arrivals, each chasing their own slice of stardom. Yet, beneath the glitz of movie premieres and the glimmer of neon lights on Sunset Boulevard, a darker, more unsettling reality simmered. Power brokers gathered in smoky backrooms, tabloid reporters thrived on scandal, and organized crime made its own rules in the shadows. The veneer of Hollywood magic could captivate and enchant, but it also concealed secrets capable of shaking the city to its core. On January 10th, 1947, that polished facade cracked. Early that morning, the city awoke to news of a horrifying discovery. A young woman, found in two sections and posed in a deliberately unsettling manner. The press immediately seized on her tragic story, christening her with a name that would become legendary, the Black Dahlia. That woman's real name was Elizabeth Short. In the days, weeks, and decades that followed, her murder would become more than a crime. It would become a grim symbol of what can happen when innocence collides with the city's darkest undercurrents. Yet this isn't just a murder tale. It's a labyrinth of hidden truths, shadowy power, and exploitation, a mirror reflecting the moral complexities of post-war Los Angeles. In the Hollywood of the 1940s, countless aspiring actresses and hopeful transplants flocked to the city in search of fame. The question, however, was how many of these young dreamers truly understood the price Hollywood could exact. By the time we're done, you'll learn details the media never fully revealed, the suspects the authorities avoided naming, and why this case continues to send shivers down our collective spine even after so many decades. Elizabeth Short wasn't born the Black Dahlia. She was brought into the world in Medford, Massachusetts, in 1924. Her early years were marked by the stark realities of the Great Depression. Her father vanished when she was still quite young, leaving her mother to face financial hardships alone. Despite these challenges, Elizabeth was known for her bright imagination and deep fascination with the movies. Like so many small-town youths mesmerized by the flickering images on the silver screen, she longed for something bigger, the glamour and opportunity whispered about in Hollywood gossip columns and magazine ads of the era. By 1943, she finally made her way to California, driven by the same ambition that lured thousands of others westward. But she soon discovered that the City of Angels had as many traps as it did opportunities. Between waitressing jobs, she hopped from one inexpensive rooming house to another, frequently scraping by. She gravitated toward people who offered a hint of excitement, soldiers on leave, men with rumored ties to the underworld, and anyone who hinted at a shortcut to show business. Reports and rumors swirled about her personal life. Some accounts suggest she claimed to be a war widow or that she'd lost a child. Whether these stories were genuine or simply fabrications spun out of loneliness remains uncertain. Then came January of 1947. Against the backdrop of post-war celebrations and Hollywood eager to move on from the gloom of global conflict, Elizabeth Short vanished from the public eye. No one knew it at the time, but her disappearance would soon captivate the country. Her final recorded appearance was at the Grand Biltmore Hotel, a downtown LA landmark known for hosting celebrities and high society events. A married salesman named Robert Red Manley dropped her off, believing she was there to meet her sister, though that sister was miles and miles away on the East Coast. Elizabeth reportedly made a phone call from the hotel's lobby, cheerful and full of plans. Yet soon after, she slipped into the night, leaving no direct clues to her fate. For 6 days, she was simply gone, and nobody came forward with information about her whereabouts. This is where our story takes a dark turn. The question that has haunted investigators, reporters, and armchair detectives for decades is, what truly happened in those missing 6 days? Was she tricked by a false promise? Did she fall into the clutches of someone who preyed on her vulnerabilities, or did she cross paths with an individual holding deep, dangerous secrets? Even now, the confusion surrounding that short span of time remains one of the case's greatest mysteries. Yet, as Los Angeles was soon to discover, the horror that befell Elizabeth Short wasn't just another tragic statistic in a city. bursting at the seams. Shockingly brutal act that would reverberate through headlines across the nation and eventually embed itself into American pop culture. Her murder would come to symbolize the city's capacity for devouring the innocent, even as it trumpeted the message that everyone could become a star. And so we begin a journey into the heart of one of America's most baffling true crime stories. One that weds the glitz of Hollywood's golden age to the grim realities of evil. By exploring the background, the suspects, and the cultural forces at play, we start to unravel how Elizabeth Short came to be immortalized as the Black Dahlia. And why? And more than 70 years later, we still can't let her story rest. What really happened after she left the Biltmore Hotel on that chilly January evening? The details remain shrouded in a fog of contradictory testimonies and scattered clues, fueling decades of speculation. Some believe Elizabeth might have willingly accepted an invitation to a private party. Others suspect she encountered a stalker, someone who preyed on her hopes of success in show business. Whatever the truth, it seems that once she stepped onto the streets that night, her fate was sealed. 6 days later, a quiet residential area called Leimert Park became the scene of a horror story no one in the neighborhood could have anticipated. On a cool morning walk, a local resident stumbled upon something beyond comprehension: Elizabeth Short, laying unalived. Separated at the waist and posed in a way that police would later describe as theatrical, almost as if staged for maximum shock value. The shocking scene of the discovery stunned the entire city. This wasn't a typical crime scene. There was no sign of blood, no obvious footprints or evidence indicating a struggle. It quickly became clear that she had been unalived elsewhere, her body carefully cleaned and deliberately placed in that empty lot. Investigators noted a disturbing cut on her face, often described as a smile-like injury or a Glasgow smile, reminiscent of harsh underworld tactics. The body was meticulously cleansed, which made gathering physical evidence exceedingly difficult. During the autopsy, medical examiners discovered that portions of her had been removed with precision, suggesting the person responsible may have had surgical knowledge, or at least some familiarity with anatomy. This led detectives to believe the crime had been planned, not a spur-of-the-moment act of rage. The Los Angeles Police Department, still dealing with the growing pains of a rapidly expanding city, suddenly found itself at the center of a media firestorm. Over 150 suspects were interviewed in the ensuing weeks. Some were mere publicity seekers who craved attention. Others seemed like genuinely suspicious individuals who raised serious red flags. Meanwhile, the newspapers whipped readers into a frenzy, plastering the front pages with sensational headlines about the Black Dahlia. The name itself was likely inspired by the film The Blue Dahlia, released a year earlier, combined with rumors that Elizabeth liked to wear dark clothing. The moniker caught on instantly, fueling a macabre fascination among the public. In the backdrop, Los Angeles was still basking in post-war prosperity. Military veterans returned to a city flush with opportunity, but also rife with corruption and shady undercurrents. Nightclubs were thriving, high rollers gambled at semi-legal establishments, and organized crime figures like Bugsy Siegel were weaving Hollywood glamour with underworld dealings. To a press machine that thrived on scandal, the murder of an attractive young woman with possible ties to the cities, Simmered was an explosive story that could sell papers by the millions. Over time, the net of suspicion fell on a gallery of individuals from different walks of life. One name was Leslie Dillon, a bellhop who exhibited an eerie familiarity with details of the crime. Another was Mark Hansen, a nightclub owner with a reputation for mistreating women, who had briefly hosted Elizabeth in his home. George Hodel, a wealthy and influential doctor with dark rumors swirling around him, would become a prime suspect much later, thanks to the decades-long investigation by his own son. Norman Chandler, publisher of the Los Angeles Times, was also whispered about in hushed tones, with some alleging he had a vested interest in suppressing information. The Black Dahlia case quickly became a tangle of leads, many of which fizzled or were overshadowed by corruption within the LAPD. The department was struggling with accusations. of incompetence and even active collusion with certain power brokers. Documents vanished, witnesses recanted, and leads that seemed promising one day collapsed under scrutiny the next. The official line was that the case remained unsolved, but even that status was laden with controversy, as rumors of high-level cover-ups and backroom deals persisted, adding another layer of intrigue. Some investigators noted striking parallels to the Cleveland torso murders from the 1930s, where victims were similarly dismembered and displayed with unsettling precision. Could one person have operated across state lines, evading detection and perfecting a chilling modus operandi? The possibility, while unproven, continues to captivate historians, authors, and online sleuths who see echoes of the same clinical ruthlessness. Meanwhile, the public's appetite for details seemed boundless. Newspaper columns ran with salacious narratives, painting Elizabeth Short as a kind of femme fatale, a party girl lured into a dangerous lifestyle. Yet beneath these sensationalized headlines was a real person, a 22-year-old woman, navigating a world far more treacherous than the glossy Hollywood fan magazines had promised. While the city collectively gasped at the brutality of her death, it also perpetuated the rumor mill, sometimes reducing her to a lurid stereotype rather than acknowledging her humanity. As the investigation continued, it became evident that the case was neither straightforward nor easily solvable. Corruption, fear, and perhaps even personal agendas prevented the authorities from shining a light on key details. The abiding question is why. Were powerful figures implicated? Were there political or social interests in keeping the truth from surfacing? Or was it simply a matter of limited forensics in an era when crime scene analysis was still in its infancy? Regardless of the answer, one fact was undeniable. Elizabeth Short's murder had rattled Los Angeles to its core, casting a stark light on the potential for evil lurking just behind the city's shimmering promise. The name Black Dahlia was swiftly becoming a cultural phenomenon, a grim reminder that in Tinseltown, sometimes the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. Speculation about the Black Dahlia case has never truly faded, and some of the theories that emerged are as shocking as the crime itself. Investigators who looked into the files could not ignore the parallels to the Cleveland torso case. Victims in both cases had signs of surgical accuracy pointing to a methodical, calculating individual. While no definitive link was established, the eerie similarities still sparked debate. Could a transient have moved from city to city, exploiting the chaos of the 1930s and 1940s to commit such atrocities undetected? Around the same time, the Los Angeles Police Department and local newspapers began receiving bizarre letters from an individual calling themselves the Black Dahlia Avenger. Some of these missives included Elizabeth's personal belongings, meticulously cleaned, much like she had been. It was a blatant challenge to law enforcement, as if the writer reveled in taunting the city. The FBI also got involved, labeling parts of the case as top secret. And to this day, certain files remain sealed or missing. The reason? Some believe it points to political clout, corruption, and a desire to protect powerful figures whose names might otherwise be dragged into the spotlight. Among the many possible culprits, a handful stand out prominently. One is George Hodel, a sophisticated and wealthy doctor whose circle included artists, socialites, and celebrities. His home, the Soden House, hosted avant-garde gatherings, and some accounts suggest activities that were far from ordinary. Decades later, George's own son, Steve Hodel, a retired LAPD detective, embarked on a relentless mission to prove his father's guilt. He collected evidence, pored over old records, and cited everything from anatomical knowledge to suspicious remarks caught on police wiretaps. While no official charge was ever brought against George Hodel in the Black Dahlia case, Steve's investigations turned his father into one of the most infamous suspects linked to the case. Another theory advanced by British author Hugh Eatwell points to Leslie Dillon, the bellhop who appeared to have an unhealthy fixation on this crime. According to Eatwell, Dillon wasn't acting alone. He allegedly partnered with accomplices, including nightclub owner Mark Hansen. She argues that the PD intentionally overlooked or suppressed evidence that might have implicated these men, possibly due to fear of scandal or pressure from influential personalities. Though compelling, like other Dahlia series, this one never produced the definitive proof needed to close the investigation. As time went on, the media's portrayal of Elizabeth Short took on a life of its own. Novelist James Ellroy would later write a fictionalized account called The Black Dahlia, Blending Fact, and imagination to create a haunting noir story set against the backdrop of Los Angeles corruption. Director Brian De Palma adapted it into a film, further cementing the image of the Black Dahlia in pop culture. Yet with each retelling, Elizabeth Short, the real person, faded further away, replaced by a sensationalized icon. We're left with a cascade of unanswered questions. Why was she posed in such a dramatic way? What was the motive behind the tactics? Could it have been a message to someone specific or simply the signature of a sadistic mind? Were there witnesses who stayed silent out of fear or loyalty to powerful individuals? Were there witnesses who stayed silent out of fear or loyalty to powerful individuals? Even testimonies claiming to have seen Elizabeth alive after her supposed time of being unalived add a confounding twist to an already tangled web. Over 7 decades later, the Black Dahlia mystery draws endless speculation from true crime aficionados, documentary filmmakers, and amateur internet sleuths alike. Tour companies shuttle visitors to the spot where she was found, as if on a twisted pilgrimage. Many see in Elizabeth Short's story a metaphor for broken dreams, a young woman pulled into a dangerous underworld, a cautionary tale about the cost of ambition in a city as dark as it is enchanting. And yet, for all the speculation, for all the theories, the official record stands. This case is still unsolved. Perhaps the real tragedy is that the answer might never surface. All we have are the shadows left behind a grim, cautionary story that reminds us even the brightest dream can cast the darkest of shadows.